Well, good morning, everybody. It's bright and early, and it's even early for me to be starting a canning session, but I should have read my recipe last night. Today, I'm going to be making the pickled three bean salad from the Amish canning cookbook. And if I had read my recipe last night, once you assemble everything and make the brine, you're supposed to let it sit in the fridge for 10 to 12 hours. And I want to have this project complete today. So I'm going to do it all now, put it in the fridge, maybe not for the 10 to 12 hours, but I'll can it later on today. So I'm going to get everything prepared, finish my cup of coffee because it's that early. I didn't get my coffee done. And I just wanted to let you know that my husband is downstairs working on the pipes for the kitchen still because we're almost there. So if you hear any noise, I apologize for that. He's trying to be quiet, but life has to go on. I didn't think I'd be doing this so early in the morning. So I'm going to get everything together and we're going to make this salad. I've made it before. I think it's my third or fourth year. We really enjoy it. And everything I'm using is from the garden, and that's my favorite kind of recipe. So I'll get set up and I'll be right back. What we're going to use for this recipe are green and yellow beans from the garden, celery from the garden, a few that aren't hollow. I kept some aside and I kept them wrapped in aluminum foil. I picked one red pepper, and I usually like them to get like that deeper red. I find them sweeter that way, but I needed one for the recipe, so I picked them more on the orangey side, but it'll work. And I don't think I have enough, but it was the only one. So if I don't have enough of that, I'm just going to substitute it with some cubanelle. It'll still give flavor and it'll look pretty. I have some onions from the garden. And then everything else, I have some kidney beans and chickpeas, and then the rest is for the brine and that. So I'm tripling the recipe because the recipe in the book only makes like 3 pints or barely 4. So what I do when I make a recipe that I've made previously, I always pencil in what I've done previously and make the amounts so I don't have to do it every single time. And what I also do is I never wash my produce when I bring it into the house. I find it stays better in the fridge or however I'm keeping it without washing it. So if I had washed all these beans, I find they wouldn't have kept as well in the fridge. So I'm going to cut them up and measure them, then I'll wash them. The celery I did wash because I put it in the aluminum foil, and the peppers haven't been washed, but everything will be washed before it goes into the salad. So I'll start cutting up I need 4.5 cups of green beans and 4.5 cups of yellow, and they just get mixed together. It says to cut them in 1 to 2 inch pieces, and I think since they're going into a jar for a salad that I'm going to go closer to like the 1 inch piece. I wanted to show you guys the yellow beans that I grew. They're just from like almost like a no-name seed packet. All my other seeds are from seed companies I ordered online, but the yellow ones are just from like a random company you can buy at like, Home Depot or a grocery store or whatever. And where I'm growing my yellow beans, they're more of a pole bean. They're growing all these green beans. At first I thought, okay, I'll wait and see if they turn yellow, but they're these flat green beans. I'll show you closer if you can see. I don't know what kind of beans they are. You see them? It's a flat green bean, and there's a whole bunch of them. I've picked this many already. So I don't want to mix them in with this because these kinds I know exactly what they are, which is what I want to use. So I thought that's weird. And they're a pole bean. They're a pole bean in with the yellow ones, which are a pole bean, which is okay because they're all growing up the same way. But I'm getting extra green beans, but I don't know what they are. And this is a really, really good recipe. It reminds me very much of my mother's recipe that she made when I was growing up. Made it mainly for special occasions, and the Ball Canning book has a really good recipe too. And the only difference I find is that the Amish one uses oil in their recipe, and the Ball Canning book doesn't. And I find the oil and the vinegar makes a better like dressing, a better vinaigrette with it than just having the oil. So that's the only difference I find between the two recipes. Otherwise, it's a bean salad. So I prefer it with the oil, so that's what I go with. All right, so I'm going to cut up 9 cups of beans, and then I'll bring you back when we do everything else, and maybe have a second cup of coffee. Okay, the beans are all chopped and washed. Doesn't look like 9 cups, but it is. Can you imagine only doing a total of 3 cups? That wouldn't get you very far. That's why I'm tripling it. And I did want to show you what I did. I try to use like my more slender beans and like a bigger bean, because this is being water bathed. It's not being like pressure canned. So I try to use my more tender, slender beans. So when you're chewing it, you're not getting like a tougher bean, if that makes sense. I try to keep it to like the more slender beans. So it would be like easier on the palate when you're chewing. So for the celery, it says trimmed and thinly sliced. So I'm just going to give it like a chop. They're very thin little stalks anyway, so they're just going to get like a little chop. I don't like that one. And I'm tripling it, so I need 1.5 cups. And what I'm doing, this recipe calls for 1 can of garbanzo beans, which we're in Canada or Quebec, like I said, I can't always speak to everywhere else, but we're not really big into beans like you in the States are. Like, we don't get into pinto beans and black-eyed peas and garbanzo beans like you guys do. And it's a very healthy thing. So we can't find garbanzo beans around here. And I haven't been to the States in a while, so I didn't pick any up. And traditionally, for us to make a 3-bean salad, we always use kidney beans anyway. And this recipe doesn't call for it, but the Ball book does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the kidney beans, and I'm also going to add chickpeas to equal the amount that's in this recipe. So for canning, you can play around with the ingredients as far as the food goes. You can't play around with the acidity things as far as like the vinegar, the lemon juice, and the oil things. Those you have to stay exactly to what the recipe says. But I can change or adjust the amount of beans that I want in a recipe. Because I couldn't get garbanzo beans, and I traditionally eat it with kidney beans. So that's about 1.5 cups, but a bit more. I love celery. All right. And now we'll do the onions. I won't make you watch me do all the onions, but I'm still trying to use up all my little guys. And I had a really, really bad onion harvest this year. I mean, most of them are small, and even the bigger ones aren't big. So I'm going to try and find a farmer's market where I can go and buy enough onions to get us through, like good storage onions. I think the recipe says to chop these onions, but in my bean salad, I like them sliced like this, really thin. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I'll chop these up and then I'll bring you back. Okay, 1.5 cups of onion. I chose to use the purple onion. First of all, I find it not as strong, or red onion, whatever you call it. And I think it looks prettier in the jar. So in goes the onion. Now the only thing left to chop is the pepper. And I have one of those chopper thingies, but to me, first of all, I want certain things cut a certain way. And sometimes it's just not worth it to bring it out. And I can't talk to you really while I'm slamming that thing. And I'd much rather talk to you than slam that thing. And while I'm chopping peppers, oh my gosh, guys, I mentioned before that in the garden, I'm growing some hot peppers for a friend of mine, and I'm happy to do it, and they're enjoying them so much. But the other night for supper, just let me see how I'm supposed to chop these, just as sliced. I think I'm just going to chop them smaller. 2 nights ago for supper, we made a stir fry, and I was so proud, and this never gets old with me. We've been doing it for years, but it never gets old. Everything was from the garden. We used green zucchini, yellow squash, onions, celery. We used the cubanelle peppers. We used the pepperonchi things. I thought I was using banana peppers. So I did all the chopping, and we used Italian sausage, which is from the cow that we had butchered. So everything in the garden, even the garlic, everything in the stir fry was from our garden. So I did all the chopping, and Frank was going to cook it all, which was fine. So he cooks it, and then we go to eat it. Now, neither one of us at all loves spice or heat. We just don't. I can't, for many reasons, have it, and we just don't like it. I'm sorry for all you spice lovers. We don't. Well, I had picked that day some banana peppers, regular banana peppers, and I had picked the hot peppers, and they're almost identical looking. But in my basket, I kept them very separate, and I put some cucumbers in between them to keep them separate. Well, I guess I had picked, when I took them out of the basket to wash and then to cut them up, I guess I picked from the wrong side of the basket, because we're both eating it and no one's saying anything at first. And I'm like, geez. So I didn't say anything, and we just cooked some regular rice to put with it. I came back and I put more rice. I added more rice on it thinking, oh, the rice will cool it down a bit. The rice didn't help. I can see Frank's face turning red because I added a lot of pepper. Anyway, I thought maybe, oh, it's the sausage that in the Italian sausage we had ordered with the cow. We had asked for mild, but we've been eating it many times, and I thought maybe just in that particular package they didn't stir it up right or whatever. Anyway, we finally figured out I must have taken the hot pepper instead of the banana pepper. And oh my gosh, it was so hot. The leftovers are still in the fridge. Frank says he'll have them so they don't go to waste, but boy, it was hot, especially for people who don't eat hot. And it was such a beautiful stir fry. Oh, we put cherry tomatoes in it. The colors were just so beautiful, and I'm sure the taste would have been outstanding had it not been for the dominance of this hot pepper. Oh, it was... Anyway, so now whenever I pick those hot peppers, they are certainly going in a completely different basket. I couldn't believe it. They're even the same shape. The hot peppers maybe come to a little bit more of a tapered point, but when I was just taking things out of the basket, I guess I wasn't paying attention. Well, I'll be paying attention from now on. So I need 1.5 cups. So my red pepper only went to 1 cup. So I'll add in a bit of Cubanelle. It's a very light tasting pepper, and it's nice and fresh. So it's a nice light green. Oh my gosh. It was like neither one of us wanted to say anything, like, because I did the chopping and he did the cooking, so we couldn't figure out what either of us could have done to possibly change the flavor. And stir fries are one of our most favorite things to eat. So I don't know how all you spice people can do it. You don't really get to taste your food, though, I find, because it dominated the flavor of everything. Like, I could barely taste my vegetables because the dominance of the spice took over everything. That was just... Anyway. So, those hot peppers are staying far away from me. All right, just a bit more. I'm glad to be using these up because they're so prolific right now in the garden. I've been freezing some, and to use them fresh, we put them in salads and stuff, but to be able to use them in another function as well right now is great. All right, that's good enough. 1.5 cups. There we go. So now I have a pretty bowl of nice vegetables without hot peppers in it. And now the recipe says 1 can of garbanzo beans drained. It doesn't say the measurement of the can. So this was 1 can of kidney beans. So that obviously that would, if I'm tripling it, that would be 3 cans. So what I'm going to do, because I have no idea what the measurements are, I'm just going to put the 1 can of kidney beans and 1 can of chickpeas. I'm going to mix it up and see what it looks like. I have an extra can of each just in case, but oh, I have a bit more here. But I don't know what the measurements were. Garbanzo beans are smaller than kidney beans, so I find it strange they didn't put a measurement. Or do garbanzo beans only come in one size, you guys, when you buy it in the store? Oh, look how pretty that is. Look at the colors. And when you can it, it pretty well retains its color. Now, the ball canning book says you can add pickle crisp to it. I did that one year. I thought, oh, maybe it'll keep it better. I found it made the beans like very waxy. I didn't like the texture at all. I find because it's only water bathed, the vegetables do not get overcooked whatsoever. It's no different than if you make a bean salad just regular that you would serve yourself. If it's marinating in the fridge, it's going to sit there for a while anyway. So I didn't like it when I added the pickle crisp. I really found it gave the beans a waxy texture, and I felt you had to chew a lot more, but to each his own. Oh, that's so pretty. So I don't know if I should add, whoops. I don't know if I should add any more tin stuff. Well, I'm going to get out all the oil and vinegar and everything and get it set up on the stove, and I'll think about it in the meantime. I wish they had put a measurement. All right, be right back. It suddenly got very dark and gray outside. It looks like it's going to rain. And the kitchen's usually the brightest room in the house, so all of a sudden it got dark and gloomy in here. Oh, isn't that pretty? Look at all the nice colors. And I decided against adding any more tin beans. I felt it was enough with the kidney beans and chickpeas. I don't want really them to be the star of the show. I want the green and yellow beans and the peppers and onions, so I think it's enough. So we'll just bring this back up to a simmer, and then it goes in the fridge. So it's a very simple recipe. I'm sure it's ingredients most of us have at home or have grown, and it's really, really good. I am telling you, when you take it out of the jar, it's not different at all from if you made it yourself for your family for a get-together, and how it sits in the fridge. Generally, it has to sit in the fridge to marinate for a while anyway. It's so good. Okay, we're just about at a simmer or a boil, which I think is the goal. So I'm going to put a lid on this, just let it sit on the counter for a few minutes before it goes in the fridge. And then I'll probably let it go at least 8 hours. I don't want to do less than that. And then we're going to water bath can it. And then we'll have delicious 3-bean salad through the winter, and we do enjoy it through the winter. So that's it. So I'll see you back in a bit. It got so dark. It's raining cats and dogs outside right now and thunder. So I guess I'll be staying inside for a while, and that's okay. There's always something to do. So I'll see you back in a little while. Have a good day. Okay, I think for once I finally have everything all set up. I have my 3-bean salad mixture hot. I have my jars that came out of the dishwasher, and I had them soaking in hot water in the sink. I've washed my lids, but they're just hanging out in warm water right now. I have vinegar to wipe my rims because I put oil in the brine. I want to make sure I do a good job cleaning the rims so I get a good seal. I have a debubbling tool. I have a funnel, and I think I'm good. I'm trying to make sure I have everything this time. I have my tongs to go in my hot canner, and the recipe says to fill it with the beans first and then to top it off with the liquid. So that's what I'm going to do. And I also found my mom's recipe in the meantime, and her recipe is so similar to this. So no wonder I enjoy it so much because it's so similar. And I promise you, it tastes, you think by canning it, you're not going to get that nice, like fresh bean salad texture or whatever, but it's only water bathed for 10 minutes. And when you make a bean salad, like without canning it, generally you use tin beans, like green beans, yellow beans. They're already cooked in the store or whatever when you open them. So this isn't really much different. So I find it just as good as if I had made a bean salad, opened the fridge and served it. Anyway, on top of that, it's been a whirlwind of a day. The weather has gone from I think when I left off with you, it was raining cats and dogs. Then I'm going to fill them with beans first, and then I'll go back with the liquid. Then the sun came out, half of the sky. It was still so dark in other parts. So I thought, okay, I'll go out and play in the garden for a while or whatever. Put my outdoor shoes on, head out, starts raining again. The whole day has been like that, off and on. Right now it's kind of dark, but it's also supper time, but it's just been a really weird day. Part of it's hot and humid, part of it's warm. So I decided I'm not fighting the weather. I kind of just stayed in, and I did a lot of kitchen projects. Over here I have a chicken broth on the go, and I chopped up a bunch of peppers to put in the freezer. So I kept myself busy. There's no lacking of what to do. And Frank's outside now. He went outside for a bit because the mean part of like the lawn, the grass, where the ducks walk, it grows so quickly. And I have miniature ducks, and it's so hard for them to walk when the grass gets long. We feel so bad for them. So he's out there in between the rain trying to like cut a path for them to walk to and from the barn or whatever in between the showers. So I just feel so bad for them, their little legs, because you can see their tiny little bellies touching the grass. So I probably washed way more jars than I need, but I always prefer to wash more and be prepared than have to scramble at the last minute. Now remember, I tripled this recipe. So what I'm getting is triple. So personally, I wouldn't go through all this effort, which it's an effort. I enjoy every single bit of it, but I wouldn't go through all this for like 3 pints. Now it also says in the recipe that you can can in like half pints, like jelly jars, which I guess is good for one serving, but this is just perfect for the two of us. We usually have it as a side with something, It's so refreshing, and it's so nice to have in the winter time when you're dreaming of summer. I'm getting more kidney beans and others. Trying to mix it up here. And we're gonna water bath them for 15 minutes, no matter if it's half pints or pints. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I might get 7. And I think I'll have a lot of brine left, which is okay. I can use it on a salad or something else. Maybe just 6. Sorry, I had the pot there the whole time. Could you see? I'm sorry about that. If you couldn't see, that wasn't smart of me. Yeah, I think I'm only going to get 6. There'll be a wee bit left, but we can just eat that plain. I could probably squeeze a bit more in. Isn't it pretty in the jar with all the colors? Probably get a bit more. And I think if one of my peppers I can see starting to turn a little bit of red out there, I have enough beans. I think I'll try and get another batch in, because as you can see, it doesn't give you very much. And if I have the beans, I have the onions. I bought an extra can of the kidney beans and chickpeas. So if I can get one of my peppers to quickly turn red before the beans don't sit too long, although I have more to pick of them as well. Next year, I'm going to make a note in my little journal to specifically keep some of the green beans and yellow beans, not many plants, I don't need many. Like, I'm specifically going to start them much later, because then the timing is never right with my red peppers. I'm always waiting on something. So I'm going to really stagger just a few plants, because I'm always waiting on a red pepper. All right, so what's left here we'll just eat tonight. I could be fishing in here for bits and pieces, so now I'm just going to fill it up with the liquid. If I have to fill in a bit more here and there, I will. Yeah, see, I could probably get a bit more in that one. And I know what's going to happen, because I'm having a late, I don't know how to say it, like my tomatoes really haven't turned red yet, and there's thousands of green ones. They just haven't turned red. And next week I go to the Amish store to pick up peaches and pears, and I just know everything's going to happen at one time, which is great, because I live for this and I love this, but it's all going to happen at once. But the priority would be the peaches and pears. The tomatoes, I can freeze them, I can cook them down and just leave the sauce like that. I have many options more with the tomatoes, the fruit not so much. It was my first time last year, half-inch, getting the peaches and pears from the Amish, and they were so good and absolutely perfect. They were just a little bit unripe when I got them, and within a day or so at home, they were beautiful. We enjoyed eating them fresh, and then I canned up a bunch. And I think this year I'd like to make some peach pie filling as well. So half an inch. I'm going to debubble really well. Maybe stick one or two of these guys out. I always err on the side of put less than more. Oh, it's still hot. So I'm wiping these really well. Even though I used the funnel, there was still oil. Oh, see, I did forget something. My bands. I can never remember everything. Oh, I thought for sure this time I had it. Fingertip type. Isn't that pretty? All the colors. Okay, debubble. You can see all the bubbles coming up. All right, I'll bring you in close while I do one more, since I probably blocked most of me filling them, and then we'll put them in the canner. I'm working in a very tight spot here because I've got the roaster going, I've got eggs, I have everything all over the place. So just to a 1/2 inch headspace. What did I do with my debubbling tool? Oh, it's right here. Yeah, I put too much in that one. Okay, I'm going to fill up the rest and we'll get them in the counter. Okay, so we're at a good rolling boil. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. And I'll just slightly lower the heat because it's going to get so rolling, it'll start spilling out the sides. So I'll see you in 20 minutes. There we go. Always move the lid away from you. Turn the burner off. And then we just let them sit here for 5 minutes. I'll set the timer again. And then we can take them out. All done. Look how pretty that is. Absolutely beautiful. we just wait for the pings. Hopefully, that's the plan. Some have more kidney beans than other, but that's okay. There, another great day. These are my favorite days. Sometimes you go with the flow, sometimes you create the flow, and either way, it ends up fantastic. So we got 6 pints by tripling the recipe, and I got just a wee bit here that we'll just eat, and another giant jar of the brine, which is really tasty. So I already have tonight's supper prepared with a salad. So tomorrow I'll just cut up some cucumber and cherry tomatoes and use that as like a dressing. It's not going to go to waste. But these are going to be delicious. Like I said, I hope I get another red pepper really soon and maybe make another batch because we really enjoy it. I have given it away as gifts and people really like it as well. So that's another thing I like to have a bit extra for. Frank just went pepper picking again, so I have some of these to do. I had the zucchini down to just a couple and now I have more, but I think my plants are just about done. So that has been a wonderful zucchini harvest. Oh, did you hear the ping? So we've been very blessed with that. So just a couple of footnotes. I wanted to apologize for my measurement hassle, another one, mishap when I was measuring out the brine. Sometimes it's really hard for me to concentrate with reading, converting, talking, filming. It's like fibro fog and I'm a bit dyslexic. So always, always check the description for the right recipe, or this is a wonderful resource and a really good book to have for canning. I have all the ball canning books, but this one is really good as well. I've made several of the recipes. Instructions are fantastic. So this is another good book to have. The other thing is, for me, when I was canning for 20 minutes at 1,000 feet. If you're above 1,000 feet elevation, you have to can for 25 minutes. So always, I don't really do instruction canning videos. I always put a disclaimer in my description. I prefer everybody do their own research, follow the guidelines, do as canning books instruct. Even when I can, every single time I refer back to my ball books or whatever book I'm using. I don't know all the head spaces off by heart. I don't know all the times off by heart. I check every single time. This is food. This has to be safe. And I go by every single guideline. Most of the time. We can get into that a little bit later. But anyway, I had a great day. I want to thank you so much. Oh, I love the pings. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. And until we're together again, take care.